It's interesting because you were not known for doing interviews early in your career, wanting to do interviews. Now you're on the other side of the table. How does that feel?
Well, that's the whole point. The reason I didn't like doing interviews is because, I became famous for wearing a helmet during the interviews because what I felt like when I got to the NFL, especially, that they weren't interviewing me as a person. They were interviewing some image that they expected me to be. And so I hated doing these interviews because I felt like, who are you even talking to? And so with Korea's questions, that's the whole point, is bringing, usually people that have some kind of fame and asking them questions that they've never been asked before. So we can have an interesting conversation because a chart shows you who's really here. And to be able to ask questions to the deeper parts of someone, not just the outer superficial layers, that's what I wanted. And so that's what I'm trying to create with the podcast.
Okay, so had somebody come at you like this in 2004, you're wearing a helmet during interviews, clearly like, I don't want to be here. If someone had come to you with this same concept, what would you have said to them? Astrology, would you have had this same outlook? Because now you're coming to people with a very, very different concept and a very, very different technique and way of interviewing people. Do you think, had someone come to you back in 03, 04 the same way, would you have been receptive to it and took that helmet off? Or you would have been like, what the hell are you talking about?
I would have been excited because it's something that was different and something that was new. So I would have been open-minded enough to give him a shot. And I would have said, this actually sounds interesting. Let's have a conversation.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So I know some of your guests or your upcoming guests are Hall of Famer Earl Campbell. Yeah. Have you guys had a chance to sit down yet?
We spoke last week. Yes.
Beautiful. And you guys have so much to talk about. Are you looking forward to that interview?
So because again, I've known Earl for over 20 years. Okay, known him for over 20 years. And consider him a close friend, right? But I've never talked to him about astrology. And so this was our first conversation about astrology. And true to form, I learned something new about Earl that just blew my mind. And I wouldn't have had access to this information if I wouldn't have looked at his chart and known what questions to ask.
Where can we find this podcast?
Wherever you find your podcast. So, I watch it on iTunes. But it's Spotify, it's everywhere.
Is it also filmed on? So can we?
It's
find
on
it
YouTube.
on YouTube as well?
Yeah, exactly. You can also find the video on YouTube.